Too many times have I seen people just get multiple different data sets and then they have no idea how they either talk to each other, how they can link to each other, or how should we even use the data set.
Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to Growth Mentors, the podcast where we share snackable growth hacks, strategies, and best practices on how to drive maximum marketing impact and grow your bottom line. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and today we're going to be talking about the best practices in how to create insightful and actionable marketing reports with the Managing Director of Data and Analytics at Jump 450, Tom Murray. Tom, so you've sort of famously created over 1,000 dashboards in your time, so you're really the perfect person to be talking to about this. I believe we're going to be going through your top 5 rules in creating dashboards. Just kick us off. What is number 1?
First one's the most important, which is you need to understand the underlying data sets that you're actually going to be dashboarding. Too many times have I seen people just get multiple different data sets and then they have no idea how they either talk to each other, how they can link to each other, or how should we even use the data set? Because oftentimes the people actually building the dashboards haven't run media before, or they're not currently running the media, where they may know we're spending money on Facebook and Google, but they don't know any of the campaign itself. So you really need to actually understand the actual data that's going into it, not just the structure, this is the different columns and things like that, but actually what's going on in the campaigns, because then you can actually do important things. Because a lot of times you need to be able to give the team what they want to see, but if you're not even understanding what you are going to be making, how can you make something good for somebody else if you don't even know what's going on? So the key thing is understanding the data set, probably more than the media buyers or the team themselves is important. And then you need to be able to figure out, how can I link data between these different sources? Because oftentimes these sources don't talk to each other. So think of sources like Facebook, Google, TikTok, Pinterest, all those different ad channels. We know that those are different ad channels, but data sets, they don't. They're all going to be in different formats. You might have 4 different data sets, 4 different date formats. Like one might be like 1/1/2024, 1/1/2024, 1-1-24. You're going to get a lot of different formats. You're going to get a lot of different columns. And you have to be able to figure out, how can I then synthesize all these into one and merge them?
Right.
So you end up having to know multiple languages and then figure out, how can I combine them all together? So the easy way I like to think about it is it's a primary key kind of system, which I'm not going to take into database 101 classes in my college, but the primary key is something unique that you can use across data sets to link things together. So if you think about yourself, Matt, now, when I'm about to say, do not say the number, but you have a social security number.
Sure.
Don't say yours, but that's your primary key, right? That links to you directly.
Yeah.
I have my own social security number that's unique, and there's 300 other million people. Now in data sets, if I have 2 different data sets, but both of them have my social security number in them, even if they're 2 different data sets, like one data set could be my address, and then my other data set could be my salary income. If I've got both social security numbers in there, I can then link those 2 data sets together.
Sure.
So if you don't know how the data sets are all comprised, you're not going to be able to find that link, which is very important, because dashboards are not usually single sources. It's usually multiple sources all combined into one. And to do that, you need to make sure all the data lines up properly. Like the biggest example I have that is the most annoying one is DMAs. So like the metro areas. So like think New York has their own DMA, not the state, but like the tri-state area, or Los Angeles or Houston, all these different market areas. All the ad platforms call them slightly different things, but there's a standardized list that the US uses for these, but for some reason, all the ad platforms have to make them their own. So to merge that data set is so annoying because you literally have to say, hey, Houston, TX is the same as Houston in these 2 data sets. So you also have to do a lot of data cleaning, but that's more than half the battle. If you don't do any of that up front, your dashboards won't be granular. They're not going to be accurate. There's going to be a lot of split data. So a lot of it actually is a lot of great care that sometimes can be very manual up front. And if you take that extra time to structure your data and clean it up properly, you'll be in a much better place to build any dashboard now and as well in the future.
Sure. Tom, so I don't want to send you off on a total tangent here, but just I'm trying to get a sense of how manual that task is. Like when you say that you need to like standardize like Houston across platforms or whatever, how many times are you actually going and entering that in? Like where does that get entered?
Depends how you're doing it. If you're in Excel, it might be each row, which I've cleaned up data sets that are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of rows, but you are filtering a lot. So you might be changing 1,000 in bulk 2,000 in bulk.
Okay.
So it doesn't take as long as it seems. But a lot of times you'll also do this in the back end using like SQL coding. Not me, but team will do that. So you can make logic that gets it, hey, anytime you see X, Y, and Z, classify it as this. Anytime you see A, B, C, classify it as this. And you could write this code to just automatically classify and clean up things. So we do that to make it fast and quick. But if you need to manually do it, it's possible. It's just, I wouldn't do it if it's more than, thousands of rows.
Sure. Great start here. Take us to number 2.
So number 2 is kind of what I said in the beginning, which is a lot of people who are building dashboards aren't running campaigns. So they may not know what to build. But remember, you're building for the audience, not yourself. So even though you may have some great dashboards in your head, you think they can look really, really good, you're not the person viewing or using the dashboards at all. It's either the client or your internal team that you're building for.
Right.
So you need to ask them, what should I be building?
Right.
And you should always try to be answering the question, like, what do I need to see in order to drive better business performance versus how do I make this chart look pretty? Because a lot of times you'll see a lot of different dashboards that are just super slick and, you click a couple buttons and it works. Sometimes the uglier ones are better. Just like ugly ads tend to work better than like super polished ads. Same thing with dashboards. Everyone always wants to talk about like form over function.
Yep.
Now when it comes to dashboards, I want function over form any day of the week because you never know what you need to pull and you always want to make sure the data is right and easy to pull. Yes, then you can always add more visuals on top later, but you got to get the basics down first to make sure if I need to pull something by day, I need to be able to pull a table that might have 50 columns in it that I can then pull out to an Excel and look at it myself if I need to. But it depends on what the audience needs, right? Like if they don't need tables and they're like, hey, Tom, I only want line graphs, then we'll make them line graphs, right? You're building for them. We've had some clients that said, Tom, I absolutely hate pie graphs. Don't ever put a pie graph in. So we don't put a pie graph in. Even if I think it's the best way to outline it, and I might still then say, are you sure you don't want it? Because I think it would actually work. Here's how it would look like. They still may say, no, I have fear of pie graphs. I don't want to put any pie graphs in. So then we don't, right? Because you're building it for them. And the more things that you do to make the dashboards the way that the person who's going to use them wants them to be, the more likely they are to use them. Dashboards are only as good as them being used, right? It's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? It does. But if a dashboard's built, but no one comes to open it, does it even matter if it's really good? No. So we want to make sure that the team and the clients want to use them, which means we have to build for them, not ourselves.
Right. Tom, I love that you just brushed past that age-old question. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. You're like, yep. Anyway, moving on. Tom, so when you're building a dashboard, does this usually start with a conversation with your audience and kind of getting a sense of like what they're going to want to see on the dashboard? Or do you have a sort of like standard mock-up that you go to and then take notes from there?
This kind of gets into rule number 3, which is get the team and client input generally before building it and get the buy-in. Now, there are certain dashboards that I know the team will want because I come from a media buying background. So I know how I would like to see dashboards. Again, a lot of people in analytics are really smart at analytics. They're really smart in SQL. They know how data sets work, but they may have never run a campaign before. So they have they just have one less leg in terms of like being able to walk and run towards finishing a dashboard. Whereas for me, I may have a little less technical knowledge, but I know how the thing needs to look, right? Which is very important. And so oftentimes I will have certain dashboards in my head that I know the team will want to see. Also, because I have been doing this for 6-7 years now with Jump, the specific people on the team, I know the dashboards they like and the things that they use. So in my head, I already know that person A likes to see a certain thing. So I make them in that way, right? I can start customizing it once I learn your orders, right? Yeah. So a lot of times I don't need to, but we still have a kickoff call with the clients that say, what do you want in your reports? Show me your existing reports so I can see how you currently look at things, how you currently name things, label things. What are you currently seeing? Because then we could figure out what do you want to replicate and what do you wish was better and what do you want to just throw out, right? Just because it has a current report doesn't mean you have to follow it, but you always want to know the baseline. So you find that out, you understand what does the client want to see, and then you work towards building to those dashboards. It might not be on day one, but by a month or two in, hopefully you have all the dashboards that they want. So I have certain dashboards that are templates that I can build off of. Everything's from scratch though, but I at least have the inspiration for them. Yeah. But then at the end of the day, I still want to make sure the more advanced things that we're building are worth the time and effort to put in to make sure they're going to use it, or they may not even know it's possible. And you kind of have to like go kind of like Steve Jobs, where he's like, they didn't know they needed this until I built it, kind of a thing. So sometimes you do have to build it to show it, because you can conceptually talk about it, but until you show how it functions, sometimes you need that in order to actually put it through. So it's a case by case basis.
Sure. Just noting that Tom compared himself to Steve Jobs. Number 4, take us in.
Not to bring Steve Jobs back into it, but he's oftentimes credited with this quote, though some people say it was Da Vinci. Who knows? Somebody said that simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And that is kind of my rule in building dashboards, where if you can't understand a graph within 5 seconds, redesign it. Because if it's not simple enough for anyone to understand, they're probably not going to understand after a minute either.
Yeah.
So you have to make them intuitive, but you have to make them simple enough to use, right? I've seen some people that'll put 3 bar graphs, 3 different metrics with 3 different bars with a line graph on top.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound that complex, but when you see it on a screen, and there's for every, let's say it's a month. Let's say every month is on the x-axis.
Mm-hmm.
For every month, you're going to have 4 data points you need to look at, and they'll never all go in the same direction.
Yeah.
So now your brain is like trying to go in 4 different directions to actually understand and put this all together. It's no good. So you want to make them simple. Just because something's possible to be built in a certain way does not mean you need to do that. I'd rather have 2 charts side by side that are similar in nature, that share elements, than have one that's combined. Just because it's too much overload. No different than having a table of 50 columns and there's too much overload. Same thing on charts. They need to be quick and easy to use, right? Now, something that I think everyone has been seeing over the past few years is more charts in the public sphere. And I'm thinking of like COVID graphs.
Sure.
Right? Like everyone got used to seeing, how's the COVID trend, up or down?
Mm-hmm.
And those charts were very simple. Usually it was like number of cases by day or week or month. Right? A very simple chart. Just because it's simple, though, doesn't mean you can't screw it up. Because there was a famous one in like Atlanta or Georgia somewhere where they're like, oh, COVID's been going down the last 30 days. But this was like during like October 2020 when it was still going way up, right? And then everyone then took that headline and ran with it. We're like, everyone says COVID's really bad, but Georgia is seeing it go down. What are they doing? Then it wasn't until somebody in data like figured it out, they sorted the graph wrong. They sorted the graph from highest to lowest, from left to right. So the dates were not in order anymore. So it looked like it was going down, but in reality, it was going up. It just was flipped, right? So you can have a simple graph, but it still needs to be set up properly. Because when people look at it, they'll take away the picture of it. They're like, oh, they see the trend going down.
Mm-hmm.
Then they say, oh, this is a graph of COVID cases. Oh, trend is going down. That's a very simple thing to look at. So that was good in the sense that it was very easy to understand in 5 seconds, but it was just incorrectly made. So you always still have to make sure that's okay, right? But the goal is, how can they look at the graph and take it away without any explanation really quick?
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons why it may not be easy to read, right? There may not be any labels. You may not know what each axis is. There might not be a title. The fonts might be too small, like little nitpicky things, but that can all change how a graph is looked at. You know, is it a tiny part of your screen or does it take up the whole screen? You know, is it clear? Can I see specifically what everything is labeled as? Can I see the axis ticks? Like, do I know that each bar is 200 versus like me trying to guess, right? So the more things you can do to make it easier for the user, the better it is.
Tom, I'd love to hear you say that you find it confusing to see the 2 graphs merge together, because do not look at graphs all day, every day, but I find that just like impossible to look at for myself. I need to see it separated.
We do have one dashboard, because this reminds me, I call it the Crayola drawing.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it's a line graph, but it's a way for you to be able to compare like 5 things against each other. So oftentimes in marketing, we want to compare, how's the CPA trending for each channel week over week?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you might have a good week and then you're like, well, which channel was really good and which channel was bad, right? Not all the time will CPA go down 20% last week and then all channels go down 20%. You may have a really good week on search, but Facebook was less, right? So there's a chart that we make that basically lets you have all those elements. And if you just open up that chart as is, there could be 50 lines on it and it's all different colors and it just looks like a kid drew lines randomly, right? So certain graphs also can be they can be interpreted in 5 seconds, but you may have to click a couple buttons first. And some people get scared off when they see a chart that doesn't make any sense. But our dashboards and dashboards in general should be made to be interactive and flexible versus static, like as if you're downloading it for a PDF. So it might be scary when you open it. You click a couple buttons, you remove the outliers or remove the things you don't want to see. Next thing you know, you have a very good view of what you're looking for.
Sure. So there's a freebie for you. Make it interactive as well. Tom, take us home. Number 5.
So everyone likes to say like, build it and they will come. It does not apply to dashboards, unfortunately. I've built a lot of dashboards that I think are great, that people said they wanted, but then they may not have opened them or they may not have even used. So you can build it. Doesn't mean they're going to come unless you take the time to explain how they work, how they function. So every time we release a dashboard that's different than normal, I'll record a video going through all the functionality, saying, hey, if you click this button, it does this. If you do this little trick, it'll do this. But make sure everyone knows how to use it, or even doing like live demos with people. Then you follow up to ensure they're using it. So oftentimes I'll send a message, hey, is anyone using this table? Is anyone using this view? Sometimes I get reports if something hasn't been used in 30 days, like it'll just break the dashboard. Like it's a dashboard feature where after 30 days, if no one uses it, the dashboard just stops updating it. So that way you're not refreshing data on purpose. Wow. So that'll also trigger to me, no one's using this dashboard, right? So the goal is, if you're building it, don't waste your own time or your team's time building it if the team won't use it. So follow up to make sure they're using it. And if they're not, ask them why they're not using it. Sometimes they forget that a dashboard's been built, right? Or they may not realize it was even there, or it might be buried in a bad section. You have to reorganize things, right? Sometimes you have a dashboard and then there's like a bunch of folders. Okay, dashboard 1, 2, and 3, and then there's like 5 dashboards under the folder. It can get buried. So maybe you have to like pull it out and put it into its own group, right? Some of this is like so fourth grade, if you will. It's like, how do I organize my folders on my computer?
Yeah.
If I have one folder that's got 20 things nested in it, I may not know what's in there. So sometimes you have to just reorganize things and just keep on updating to make sure that they're actually using them. So you can build it. They're not going to come unless you tell them why they need to come see it, and then making sure you follow up. You don't have to be annoying, like a telemarketer. If I like, hey, did you use that dashboard today? And then keep calling them automatically. But following up with them helps, because then they'll also ask you for other things that they might need, because then you can sort of say, hey, what else don't you have? Like, you like this dashboard, what else do you need? Oh, I've actually been doing this manually. I'm like, anytime you hear the word manual, it should trigger to a data person, say, how do we automate it for you to take that off your plate? Right, so it just starts conversations around what dashboards you have, what do you need, and how else we can help.
Excellent. So 5 rules for creating insightful dashboards. Tom, you are an expert in your craft, and I know you take a lot of pride in what you do. So thank you for that. This is Tom Murray, the Managing Director of Data and Analytics at Jump 450. And if you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.